Annabel did not attend that morning either, for she rose with a heavy heart. She had hardly slept a wink that night. She felt sad and angry at seeing Thomas with Cecily. But why was that? She had known for quite some time that they were planning on marrying each other. It had not bothered her then, albeit she was disappointed with the lost chance of marrying her childhood friend. But now she was angry with him for speaking ill of her father, but seeing him kiss Cecily was somehow much worse. She was furious, but as the evening wore on, her rage had transformed itself into great sadness, of a sort with which she was not yet familiar. It was reminiscent of the time she left Calais for England, and of the time she lost the company of her beloved teachers, but deeper and greater, and it made her chest ache with its fierceness. Perhaps, she thought, it is because I now realize that his friendship is lost for good. Perhaps it signifies the loss and end of my childhood as well. She felt quite wretched, as if she could not possibly go to her day's work with Madame de Bonville today, for she knew that she would be forced to face Cecily, and she knew that she could not today. Not without revealing with my expressions and countenance her secret liaison with Thomas, and I do not wish to betray him, she convinced herself. So she sent word through her maid Anne that she was feeling ill and would not attend, and went to the stables to take a horse and go for a ride. Soon my father's work here would be finished, and I want to view the sceneries of my childhood on my own for a little while. She took a small grey palfrey that reminded her quite a bit of the little grey mare she was given for her 10th birthday, a little before they left for England, and on she went. She was riding away from the castle's cultivated gardens and into the wooded grounds that bordered it from the south. She tried to calm herself in all the ways she knew. She took long draughts of air. She looked at the flower beds and smelled them. She dismounted and led her horse through small narrow paths until at the verge of despair she sat under a tree, for no peace of mind was achieved. She took out her drawing gear and decided to ease her mind by concentrating on sketching the scenery. Perhaps it would serve her as a souvenir when they depart. The light was coming in through the trees in soft rays, illuminating the woodland ground, strewn with little pale violet-blue flowers. Annabel knew their name, but she was so preoccupied that she could not conjure it from the depths of her mind. She gave it up and got to sketching the scenery. From the top of the hill where the tree was located, the Duke's new castle could be seen to the northeast, facing the sea. She decided to include that in her sketch as well. She sketched for a time, not knowing how long she was sitting there, not caring about it either. She was enjoying herself for the first time in many weeks since she came to the Duke's court. After finishing a good portion of the sketch and deciding to come back to finish it another day, as the light was changing, she lifted her head and was surprised to see a horse ridden by a young nobleman approaching her. Annabel's heart gave a start. She was alone, and well she remembered what had nearly happened the last time she had been alone with the man in the greenwood. She was slightly relieved when she saw it was Thomas when he dismounted and approached. He had been riding all morning in quest of solitude and solace for his aching soul and buzzing mind, but he too could not achieve it. Annabel's image kept appearing before his eyes, causing a dull, sweet ache in his chest. He loved her, and he knew it now, but it was to no avail, as he knew that they would not be permitted to wed. What was worse, she loved him not. He was almost certain. When he saw a feminine form sitting at a tree, resembling his true love, he thought that his mind was deceiving him, that in his desperation he was seeing a mirage of her, but decided to approach and find out. He was alarmed and delighted at the same time to learn that it was, in fact, she of whom he had been thinking. It was as if he had conjured her into being, just by his deep, desperate contemplation of her, and that, as well as the prospect of being in close encounter with her, alone, frightened him, for he knew not the amount of self-control he would be able to muster around her, withholding from her his feelings for her, withholding his touch. "My lady," he said, removing his cap. "Is it you, my Lady Annabel?" "Yes," "My lord, of course, she answered, not sure what this odd question could mean. "I am sorry if I seem odd to you, my lady. It is a strange thing to encounter in real form, in flesh and blood, that which one has been conjuring in one's mind's eye all morning." Annabel did not know what this meant, or what to reply to this, for she was not quite sure how such a statement made her feel. What was more, she was still apprehensive about being alone with him. He approached closer, and without asking her leave, sat himself down next to her. Annabel's heart was leaping in its ribcage, though were it only for apprehension or for something else quite different, she was not sure. "It is not like me to be so unsure of my own mind and heart," she thought, "but it seems to be ever my wont whenever Thomas is in my presence. This is a dangerous thing, to be out of her faculties, for any lady who finds herself alone with a gentleman." Thomas could sense her apprehension, and knew that he must give her reassurance. "My lady, you should know by now that you need never fear me. Do you not know that?" "I do, my lord, and I am not afraid. It is only that I am not accustomed to being in the presence of a man, unchaperoned and away from all source of help," though she knew that she was very efficient in escaping such situations. "Very well, my lady Annabel," and he looked directly at her. "I felt like you were angry with me after our conversation. I felt as if we were a breath away from resuming our friendship, and that it was no longer within our reach. My lady Annabel." He took a deep breath and swallowed, for he wished very much to tell her that he loved her, to embrace her, caress her head, and smooth her curls, and kiss her lips. But her cold demeanour and apprehension stopped him from doing so, and he resumed, "May we not be friends once more, sweet Belle?" On hearing him address her with her childhood name, the shortened version of her Christian name, she was instantly hit with the image of him kissing Cecily, of him calling her Cis for short and for endearment, and felt a tidal wave of rage and sorrow wash over her, and she answered, enunciating each word with great intention, "No, we may not, my lord, for your falseness deters me from it." She rose from her seat, went to her little grey, and rode away from him. It was not long before her eyes were blinded with tears. Why had it this effect on her? Why was she so enraged with him kissing Cecily? Or was it the fact that she had all but expected him to make advances towards her, calling her entire body to attention, then had naught but friendship to offer her? They were no longer a lass and lad of 10 and 12. What business had they to be friends? It would have been better if they just succumbed to their now obvious attraction, and have done with it, as he was to wed Cecily de Bonneville, and she would be matched with a knight of the Duke's court, should she choose to stay, or someone of her parents' choice. But why am I so teary over this? Why has Thomas this effect on me? Am I again being led on a dangerous path by my own passions? I thought I had grown past it since coming here. The road was barely visible to her through her tears, and after a few minutes of her galloping away from the tree and from her thought, and away from Thomas, Annabel found herself thrown off her horse for the second time in her life, landing on her legs, twisting her left ankle, causing her to cry out in pain. Thomas, who in his dismay and heartache at her response still lingered around near the tree, heard her, leapt on his horse, and reached her in minutes, for she had not ridden very far. "My lady, are you well?" she heard him say, his voice full of concern, for she was not this time blessed with dropping into unconsciousness, obliterating her pain. Instead, she felt a throbbing pain in her left ankle. "Yes, sir, I thank you," she said through gritted teeth, trying to rise to her feet, only to tumble back down as her pain struck her anew. "Yes, I can see that," said Thomas, not without humour, but with a hint of dismay. Why would she not let him help her? Surely she was not that angry with him. "Do not mock me, my lord." "I wouldn't dare." Here, he helped her to her feet. For a moment they stood there, locked in an embrace, their hearts racing. Thomas could now see that Annabel was very much distraught and affected, and, though it grieved him to see her hurt, It gave him a glimmer of hope that she was not entirely indifferent to him, and he could not help but grin to himself lightly. "I am very glad to see my lord is amused by my plight," said Annabel, and tried to free herself from his hold, only to tread on her throbbing ankle again, wincing with pain. "I am not at all amused, Annabel," he said quietly and earnestly. "I must assist you to arrive at your residence. Let me help you mount your mare, and I shall lead both horses on foot. You might have broken a bone riding so—" And he paused as he realized the improbability of this entire affair, as Annabel had been an excellent rider, even as a young girl. "But what happened, Annabel? Why did you take a fall? You know these grounds, and a proficient rider such as you— It was then he noticed her rosy complexion and red eyes, caused by her crying. "Have you been crying? Have I caused you to cry, my lady?" he said softly, taking her hand. Annabel remained silent and lowered her gaze. She could not bring herself to lie to him. "My lady," he said, and his voice became even quieter and more serious, though his heart sang with the possibility that she might love him. "Forgive me. I honestly and full-heartedly apologize for any sorrow or pain it might have caused you. Though I know not what my transgression had been, I assure you it was unconsciously done." "This is most confusing," thought Annabel. "I don't want to forgive him, but I find myself compelled to." And she lifted her eyes at him. Thomas, who had been able to refrain from declaring his love thus far, mostly for thinking it unrequited, could no longer do so, as he saw her eyes looking directly into his, barely an arm's length between them. This loveliest of maidens, his one-time best friend, the cleverest, most intelligent lady of his acquaintance, was virtually in his arms, gazing upon him. What was he to do? His heart and body were stirred. He moved towards her, holding her closer, smoothed her head of curls with his hand, as he so longed to do, and then held her face and leaned to kiss her. "He is deceitful. Did I not see him kiss Cecily de Bonneville only yestereve?" she thought, and then said, "No, my lord," though she longed to be kissed by him, and moved away. "You are virtually betrothed to Cecily, Madame de Bonneville's daughter. It is this very falseness to which I was referring." "But how—" "I heard you make promises to her, and I saw you kiss her only yestereve, my lord." My lady was always very good at going unnoticed. "You deny it not, then? I can but assume my lord's intentions towards myself are not honourable. Take me to my father's residence, if you will, kind sir." "Please do not revert to this harsh formality with me, my lady Annabel. I offered my friendship to you honestly and wholeheartedly, and I refused it. Now, if you will—" And she handed him her elbow so he could help her mount her mare anew. He did so, and walked back to the castle in silence, distraught and heartbroken.